Hi everybody, and welcome back to The Learning Curve. Once again, I'm Sandy Boucher, and today we're here with Charlene Rogers. Thank you so much for coming out today and agreeing to be my guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, are you kidding? Well, I can't wait to share with you why I wanted you on the show. Once I read these papers, well, you knew how fast I asked you. I was like, hello, we have to talk. But before I get into that, as we were just discussing before the show, this is all about relationships and getting to know people, because that's how you eliminate misunderstandings and bring down those barriers, is actually getting to know people. And as I say in almost every show, this is my favorite part of the show, because I bring on people that I've known for a while. We've known each other for a little while now. Not well, but we see each other. We travel in the same circles.
Yeah.
And then even with the people I've known for years, I always end up learning something new. So that's amazing. So I don't think so, but are you born and raised Thunder Bay?
I am not.
Okay, I knew that part. I got one right. That never happens. So where are you from?
I grew up in a little town on Lake Ontario called Port Hope. Actually, I didn't grow up in Port Hope. I grew up outside of Port Hope, kind of between a little community called Welcome.
Okay,
How
that's
funny.
adorable.
Isn't that funny?
Okay.
Yeah. And Port Hope.
Okay, awesome. And to us up here in the north, it's all Toronto.
I know, and it is now, actually. Yeah, the highway goes down that way now.
Okay, so what of the big, like, is that near Hamilton, Burlington? Where are we talking?
It's a little closer to Toronto than Kingston.
So
it's
okay, the other way.
It's about halfway between Toronto and Kingston.
Okay, awesome. So you grew up there. How did you land in Thunder Bay?
Oh, I'll give you the Coles Notes version.
Okay.
I was finishing a degree in Toronto, and I wanted to move somewhere. Two things. I wanted to be somewhere where there was access to nature, access to nature. Hated Toronto, and I also wanted to come and to a place where I would be able to meet Indigenous people and lend my voice, do something to help.
Awesome.
That came out of the stuff that came out of my degree that we'll talk about.
Okay, awesome, excellent. What university were you in?
I was at York University.
Okay, awesome, amazing. Now, to be crystal clear, you're not Indigenous.
I am not Indigenous.
No, okay. But you have had Indigenous teachers along the way.
Yes, I have had, and all of this stuff that we're going to share today is the result of having Indigenous teachers during my degree, and I really want to thank them from the bottom of my heart that what they helped me arrive who I am now, how I arrived here. And that's Robin Cavanaugh, Peter Cole, and Susan Dion. Those three professors I had at York University changed my life.
Yeah, and you know what, honestly, having read the papers, it so resonated with me, it so made sense. So now that you explain you had that influence, that totally makes sense to me. It comes across in your papers in a beautiful way. So to bring the viewers up to date here, we're talking about two papers that Charlene wrote for her degree. And the first one, are you ready for this, is called Whitey and the Wool, Unraveling a White Life. She got my attention with the title, I gotta admit. The second paper is called Artifacts and Artifiction, Reflections on the Unbearable Whiteness of Being. So, wow. Now, these were written back in 2005. So first off, I just wanted, like, basically the content, that's still who you are, you still stand behind?
Absolutely.
Because I know I've changed dramatically since 2005.
I have. I think the big thing, though, is that it came out of a place of anger. And I'm more at peace with everything that I wrote. Like, I'm more at peace and have a better vision.
From the experiences I've had and the people I've had the pleasure to work with and meet, I'd say anger as a first reaction is really common. I think that's just a natural, when you start learning this stuff, you're frustrated, you're angry, you can't believe what you're learning, right? So totally. I did want to say though, now I've used the term unpacking on the show many times, and reading these and knowing you wrote them in 2005, I thought, like, wow, you've been unpacking longer than before I knew the term, right? So kudos to you for that. Thank you. Because what an amazing self-awareness trip this has been, right? A journey. And thank you for being brave enough to not only share the papers with me, but being willing to come on the show. So to give the audience a chance, I'm an author first and foremost, and I've learned actually from Reg Jones on this show. I asked him to come on and read something he had written, and I had no idea how powerful it was going to be. But when you ask an author to read their own work, that's pretty incredible. So just to give them an idea, I wanted you to read the first paragraph from your first paper, which is Whitey and the Wool, Unraveling a White Life. So go for it.
It's hard to say when it all began. I think when Whitey was born, she was made Y2K knit compliant, because it wasn't long after that that wool began to develop over her eyes. The wool prevented her from seeing and hearing clearly. It filtered all of the messages. It shaped all of the thoughts, ideas, conversations, and acts that she was part of. It would be years before she realized it was there. She's told me about how she felt when she first realized there was wool over her eyes. She told me what a good thing it is that the wool is becoming unraveled. And even though it's a slow and painful process, she wants to continue to unravel it. With each new knot she discovers, she feels new hurt at whatever it was that put the wool there in the first place. But she's strong and determined. While she may not ever know who or what, or if there is any specific place to discover the beginnings of the wool, she believes that she'll never have the wool pulled over her eyes again. She has seen the light around her, and she wants to share it with everyone she meets, but that all comes later.
Wow. Did it get you right off the bat? Yeah. Y2K or Y2 knit compliant. Wait, that was cute.
Thank you.
So was this in reference to Y2K and the panic we all felt back then?
A little bit. This actually, this is the influence of Peter Cole, who I wrote the paper for.
Okay.
And his writing is narrative writing, and he uses cute but punchy references.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah. So it is around the Y2K thing and making sure our computers were all compliant. And I had a sense that as children, we come into the world ready to have stuff installed on us.
Yeah.
So I was ready, and just by the nature of.
Yeah, and you know what? I swear unpacking is such an ongoing journey. When you just said that, I thought like, oh my God, as a parent, you expect your kids to be compliant. Oh, I have to go apologize to my children again. Okay, so, but the second paragraph, now, anyone who knows me knows if you're a non-Indigenous person watching this show, this is not about beating anyone up. This is, you were taught what you were taught, and what we are encouraging is just to look at that and ask yourself some questions. This is not about beating anyone up. And in line with that, I thought the second paragraph of this paper was equally as important. So if you wanted to share that, that would be awesome.
Sure. First, Whitey wants me to tell you a little bit about her in the time before the wool started unraveling. She wants you to understand she wasn't a bad person. She was always a good student. She always gained the praise of her teachers for being a nice, pleasant, cooperative child. Her parents loved her for her cheerfulness, her sensitivity, her charm. Her mother always said she'd gotten that from her father. Her mother often commented about what a deep thinker she was, so Whitey never had any reason to doubt that she hadn't grasped the whole situation, or heard the whole story, or thought things through clearly. After all, she wasn't afraid to ask questions, but Whitey was also very naive, some would even say gullible. You see, she told me, when the wool has been pulled over your eyes, you can't tell a cleverly woven story from the truth. Everything looks the same. It's all white. But I didn't know that because I had never seen anything different.
Wow. Wow. And I love that because Whitey's not a bad person, right? And I love that you pointed out, because I can think of so many people who were that inquisitive kid and challenged everything. So for them to think that maybe they learned something that was a partial truth or slanted in some way, they're going, no, trust me, I questioned everything, but this is an absolute proof of that, right?
Yeah, and I think that probably the first words out of my mouth after Mommy and Daddy were, why?
Oh, okay, we knew each other. As children, I would have said the same thing. And then one more reading on page 3, Whitey starts, now we're not pointing fingers on parents here either, because Whitey starts to experience the education system. So if you wanted to share a little from that.
Yeah. Soon she started to learn about the Hudson's Bay Company, the Northwest Mounted Police, the Courrier de Bois, and the Voyageurs. They traded with the ancient people, traded furs for weapons, beads and blankets. wool blankets. She learned that these heroes opened the land for settlement, that priests came to teach the Indians about God and how to write, that treaties were made so that the settlers could have homesteads and farms, and Indians would have an education and their own land too. She heard that the Indians also massacred the settlers who were trying to make their homes, those brave pioneers who made Canada the country it is today. She didn't really wonder too much about what happened to the Indians after the pioneers got there. You see, the wool was pulled down further over her eyes now, and it was white wool.
Wow. Parts of that made me nauseous reading that, but that is what is taught. I'm positive that's what I was taught. So I have a really important question for you. Are you Whitey?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
love the way you presented this, though. If I'm Indigenous, I've always known the value of storytelling, but with each passing day, I realize how stories, Richard Wagamese was another incredible example of using a story to discuss really hard things. And because it's presented in an easy way, people accept it and digest it rather than being challenged, right? Mm-hmm. So we're about to go to break, so unfortunately a very quick answer, but was there a moment where you started unraveling the wool, or was this just a gradual process?
It's been a gradual process. It started with living in Yellowknife, and for the first time in my life, really noticing Indigenous people around me and the disparity between my culture and theirs.
Wow.
And then, yeah, just moving on to doing the degree and having Indigenous professors really open my eyes.
And I've heard that before too, especially with my guests, in that they didn't notice Indigenous people before. And then at some place, in some point, they notice, and they always notice the disparities. When Travis Hay was on the show, he said the same thing between Churchill and DFC. Yeah. And he noticed the difference. So absolutely amazing. Would you believe it's already break time? Like, wow, this is just flying by. I hope you enjoyed the excerpts from those papers as much as me. Here's your chance to go refill that coffee and come back in a few moments, and we'll discuss artifacts and artifiction. See you in a few moments.